We mentioned that the bass strings were copper wire coils around some sort of a core string. So what is the core made of? And then the more treble strings that are not made of the copper coil, what are they all made of?
Yeah, the core and all the other metal wires are like a steel wire, and then the bass strings just are wrapped around that steel core. And the different the reasons pianos are different lengths or heights is, the scale design. Longer strings, um, well, there's three important factors in the design of the strings: how thick they are, the diameter, how long they are, and then how much tension you put on them. So a longer string, when it vibrates, will be a lower pitch. A shorter, real short string, it's going to have a higher pitch if the tension is the same. And so the tightness of those strings being all the same, then the thickness of the string also changes, whether it's higher in pitch, sharper, or lower in pitch, flat. So a lower note that you want to play lower and lower, you have to have a longer and thicker string as you go down lower into the bass. And the higher you go up, the strings get thinner and shorter up to the top notes. And you are changing one of those three things in order to do that. Well, you don't want to change the tension. The tension should all be about the same. So you change the thickness and the length, and that will change the tone too, because shorter, thick strings are going to have a duller, tubbier sound. So on the short spinet with your short bass strings, the sound isn't as good in the low end as on a 9-foot concert grand piano, where that low bass string is really long and it can vibrate much easier. It's more flexible, and so the sound is better.
Now, even on those longest full grand concert grand pianos, they would still have that copper coiling. There would still also be thickness to it. Is that
Yeah,
correct? So,
yeah.
would it be possible theoretically to make a piano the thickness wasn't altered and the strings were only differed in length? Would it be miles long? Do we have to add that thickness?
Yeah, I
Is
don't know
that
how
is that
long it would
theoretically
get.
possible?
Yeah, it is possible. I mean, the longest, but is it going to sound better at a certain point? It might sound different. I mean, there were longer pianos than 9 feet. There's 11-foot grands, or maybe the largest one. I don't know if, on record, if there was one 12-foot one ever made. But there's other problems with that too, that come into the heaviness of the cast iron harp in order to
Sure.
hold, you know, and but what's interesting is, even though on a 9-foot the bass strings are really long, you get up into the top note 87 and 88, they're all the same length. It's just about 2 inches. Those top notes, the string, you really can't make it thinner and longer, because the wire would be too weak to hold the tension, and they wouldn't produce the amount of sound needed. And a lot of times people complain, those top notes, I don't really hear a pitch. It just sounds like wood hitting, thumping. Um, and they don't produce a lot of sound. It's more of a filler. As you play your scale,
Right.
you go up octaves, your arpeggio, and you just hit a note up there, your ear fills it in. And the rest of the strings kind of enhance it too. When, if you'll notice, the dampers that stop the vibration, they stop in the last couple octaves. There are
Right.
no
There are no
dampers.
dampers. Right. I always
And
tell students those notes just aren't, they don't
they,
sustain long enough
yeah,
to need a damper. A damper is unnecessary, right?
yeah, Yeah, and I have customers get new pianos and they think there's something missing in their pianos. No, that's the way it was
Where
made
are those dampers?
intentionally.
Yeah, they're just pointless.
But the
So that
other
gets us
strings help it. The other strings will vibrate when
right,
you pluck that or play that top note. There is a little bit of vibration in those free strings that enhance it.
right. So really, the best combination is alterations of both thickness and length.
Yeah,
Is there a particular reason why we use copper as the coils around the bass strings? Like, why didn't we use maybe like continued? Why didn't we use continued steel strings to coil around? Why did we choose copper?
yeah. In fact, in World War II, they stopped using copper because it was needed for building, planes and ships and other military equipment. Copper was expensive, and they used. Not sure it was a steel wire. It was more gray in color, and some pianos that are made in the early 40s still have those. And how much different do they sound? They're not as lively. Copper is soft,
Mm-hmm.
and it creates a better tone quality. Um, is there other metals that could work? Yeah, probably, but copper is readily available
Right.
and less expensive than, and it's stronger than nickel or pewter or something else that could be used.
But copper would be too weak to use as the core. That's why the copper is
Yeah,
wrapped around the steel core.
yeah, it's too stretchy because
Right.
you can bend copper quite
Right.
easily.
Right. You could make a little copper sculpture with
Yep,
your hands, so it's
yep,
too weak.
and it melts at a lower temperature, but that's it's probably easier to wind it around there too because of that.